Hello,
Fantastic.
Tara Russo. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Sarah. And how are you?
I'm very well too. So we're a little bit later than we normally would be today. So thank you very much for being a bit flexible. Now, Tara, you are a mindfulness and
Meditation coach for children.
there we go.
And I also train,
Some-
I also train adults to do that too.
to be mindfulness and
Yes,
meditation coaches. Okay,
yes.
so that's wonderful. I used to be a drama teacher for children, and I didn't teach in schools. I had my own program that I used to teach, and I think there is no greater thing that you can pass on than, in my case, it was communication skills, and in your case, it's mindfulness and meditation. You know, making a difference to what's going to come next is massively rewarding. So let me ask you, how on earth did you become a mindfulness and meditation coach for children?
Well, two reasons really. The main reason is my own daughter, who's now 16 and in year 11, studying for her GCSEs. And 5 years ago, when she was in year 6, she was the cohort that were going to have the new SATs exams. So she picked up, despite the school being very good and not passing on that stress to the children, or trying very hard not to, she's very empathetic and sensitive and picked up on that. And she had two quite frightening panic attacks. And we didn't know, me and her dad didn't know, we thought it was happening, we didn't know. And then I saw, I'm just looking for the book now that I've got ready. I saw a review for this book, Calm Kids by Lorraine E. Murray. And I bought the book, and it sent me down a whole new path. I read the book, I got very interested in the ideas in there, and I was teaching languages at the time. I've been a long time teacher of modern foreign languages in secondary school in Nottingham, and I could also see how the curriculum and the stress was impacting upon the children that I was teaching, and how the joy and the so-called soft skills have been removed from education. So to make them measurable, which meant that we couldn't teach in the way that we used to be able to teach, and it was stressing out the kids more in class, and there was more challenging behaviour presenting. And I decided to take the plunge to leave that job, and noticed that Lorraine did training, took that training, trained to become a Connected Kids tutor, where I can work with children to help them manage fears and anxieties and process uncomfortable emotions. And then she invited me to train to become an adult trainer. So now not only do I work with children, but I've trained teachers so they can bring this to the classroom. I've trained parents so that they can help their own children.
Oh, the training isn't to become a meditation and mindfulness coach. It's to teach teachers, parents, people in responsible positions to be able to use this material with the children in their
there's a two-leveled training. So the foundation level will be for parents, teachers, so anyone that has interaction with children, be it their own or their nieces, nephews, their friends' children, or whether they work with children, then they can bring those skills in. The professional level, which allows them to become the coach, will allow them, will teach them how to teach children with more special needs, so children on the autistic spectrum, children with ADHD, how to manage those conditions more positively. It will help them to give kids those tools, and then they can charge a fee for their services as well.
Brilliant. So talk to me about the kinds of things that you do and the impact that they have, and how did your daughter get on with her SATs? And I've got loads of questions.
So my daughter, that was really at the very start of when she was doing her SAT, that was at the start of my journey. So I did some of the exercises out of the book with her, and that helped calm her. And the book also talks about Reiki and the energy healing that Reiki does. So I learned how to do Reiki as well. So I would do Reiki on my daughter. And whether you have, some people think that it's somebody referred to it to me as snake oil, but it helped my daughter and it helped me. So whether it's all in the mind or whether it actually works, I found it to be a positive thing. If we fast forward to the first lockdown, say around May last year, when my daughter was in year 10, she had second bout of panic attacks. This time it was so much different. This time, instead of thinking, what can I do, what can I do, what can I do, I had a whole mindful toolkit with which I could help her. So we did some breathing exercises, some guided meditation. So she was, and I was able to say, well, what's happening in your mind is that this is happening, and we're going to deep breathe. So your limbic system, your monkey brain, has gone into overdrive. It's kicked off your reptilian brain. So we're going to do some breathing exercises to bring down the breathing rate, which will soothe that monkey and calm that reptile. And then so she was able to feel much calmer, and she said, oh, but I wasn't worrying about anything. And that's the nature of a panic attack. It can just happen like that. And that's what I have learned, because before this, I knew I didn't know much about it at all. And it wasn't necessarily, and I hate to say this, I was always a sympathetic teacher, but sometimes I might have thought, oh, why doesn't that child like to answer a question, or please don't cry, because there was once a pupil that would cry when I asked her to answer a question, and I was like, oh, please don't cry. And now I understand things a bit more. So in the classroom situation, when I am working as a teacher as well, because I do both, because I can't quite give up the classroom because I like it so much. For example, some boys were having a fight in the corridor, and I do have, and I can have, a very loud voice. My meditation students would probably be surprised, because they've said how gentle it sounds, but it can also be very strident. And usually in the past I would have used that to very, very good, what I thought, effect. This time I just said, I raised my voice once to get the attention of the fighting boys, and then I said, one teacher colleague took one boy away, and with the other one, he was well in fight or flight, he wouldn't have been able to speak to me. So I gave him a breathing exercise to do, which was like, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, and all the way through the fingers and back. And as he'd done that, he was then calm enough to talk to me about it. And I felt empowered to respond in a calm way, whereas before I have to say I might have shouted a bit more. Yes. So it's been very helpful in that way. I've had one young student who said that she can sleep better.
That's nice.
It's lovely, isn't it? Another one who said that her daughter could adopt more healthy ways of dealing with her stress, because she was she thought that her daughter was using food too much and overeating to deal with her stress, and that she had found different ways to manage that stress now.
Brilliant.
So they're ones that stand out to me. And children that have panic attacks in class now, number one, I'm more sympathetic because I've had that very personal experience myself. And number two, I feel empowered to do something rather than at a loss.
So I have a question.
Yes.
Why was she crying when you asked her a question?
Well, I think that it was just this was years ago, and it was just all I was saying in French. So I'm a language teacher. I was saying, comment t'appelles-tu? What's your name? And I was hoping that she would come back with, je m'appelle, and whatever her name was. And that would have pushed her into there are some children for whom speaking out in class is very, very stressful. And I think it's only having two daughters who who react similarly and who don't want to speak in class that I've become much more aware. And we can't always let them be quiet. We do have to tease them, tease it out of them. I don't mean tease them as in we have to encourage them. But I've learned different ways to do that, and also ultimately give them the choice. I think now I'm old enough and experienced enough to ignore the inspectors and people that want you to each child to respond in the same way. I think it's also given me that confidence as well.
That's a very interesting thing you just said.
Yeah.
The inspectors who want each child to respond in the same way.
That's it. Yeah. That's how I feel it is. I
Yeah,
feel that.
no, ex-teacher here. I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah.
I haven't really thought like that, but yes.
They all want. It seems now that it might not be the case, and there might be inspectors that say no, 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 we don't want to see that. But I think that's the interpretation of management in a lot of schools. So that is how they approach it.
But there is a model child that responds in this way, and that we should all be striving for that model.
Yeah.
And that model's one that sits up straight and answers nicely when spoken to and doesn't chat in class unless they're in a place where there's, okay, that's really interesting. So this perfect fictitious child.
Yes. That doesn't bring anything into the classroom from outside.
No, that leaves the rest of their lives at the door.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you've just reminded me, talking about bringing into the classroom from outside, of another situation where I was working with some quite disturbed children in a school, and this was not as a languages teacher, this was in my role as mindfulness and meditation coach. And we're doing some work about managing emotions, and often they'd come in at the start of the session, they'd be quite rambunctious, and there'd be issues that had gone on in the playground just before they came in. And I taught them a move called the amygdala hold, which is sort of like putting one hand at the back of your head and the other hand at the front on your forehead, and thus connecting the thinking part of your brain, the reflective part of the brain, with the oldest, the reptile part of the brain. And it's very soothing. And I called it the champion hold, with the super brain being the champion hold. And I taught that move that to do, and it's very calming. And then a couple of weeks later, running the session, a boy came in after the rest, late, and he was very wound up, and you could see it. And normally that aggression that he was displaying in his body language and the way he was speaking would have infected the rest of the class and the group, and would have spread, and there might have been situation brewing, they might have got into a tussle with each other. That's the kind. Well, another boy who normally would have caught this, it's almost like to catch that bad mood, to catch that. He just went, said the boy's name and did that. And the boy did that. And then he just sat down. And I was gobsmacked. And I thought, my goodness. And that was really powerful. And then
that's when you stand there and go, this
it was like, oh my goodness, it was such like you say, a goosebump moment, a real buzz moment. And the TAs that came into the nurture group with those children were saying, oh, the parents have been asking, what is this that they're doing? And because they were doing it a lot, they were doing it when they were back in class as well. So to be able to help, to empower children to know that they have a choice in how they respond to stimulus, so as to someone winding them up, that they don't have to thump them, they don't have to respond in a way that will get them into trouble, that will
negatively impact on their lives.
That's right,
generally.
that will negatively impact on their lives. It's a very it's a privilege, and it's a very powerful thing.
When I was a student teacher, the guy who I kind of shadowed mostly used to swear in class. He was young, and the school that I was working in was in a sink estate. It was a very difficult area, and you know, lovely kids, but challenging lives outside the classroom. And this guy used to swear with them, like quite raised my eyebrows type of swearing, not a bit of this and that. And I remember talking to him about it and saying, I'm really interested in why you do it. He said, oh, well, you know, it's important that they feel that I'm one of them and that they can communicate. And having reflected on that for a long time, I thought that I strongly disagreed, because when we leave school and we get unleashed on the rest of the world and the rest of your life, you need to know what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. And, you know, if wherever you end up working, that kind of language isn't going to be acceptable, other than kind of in the staff room. And I remember thinking at the time, that is going to negatively impact on the rest of their lives. That is not doing them any favors at all. And you saying that he would have been so much better. I mean, I'm going back a long time, obviously, before we sort of worried about a children's emotional kind of, you know, situation. But he would have been so much better having a toolkit of things to de-escalate rather than to join in with the escalation.
Yes, you've reminded me of a group of girls that I used to teach many years ago that were very challenging, didn't want to do languages. It was at a time when languages was compulsory, and I used to get really cross and annoyed at their swearing. And then one lesson I joked about it, and I said, oh, we need to start a swear jar for my weekend wine fund or so. And then the atmosphere changed. So they might not have sworn less, but they were aware it wasn't the right thing. But at the same time, it was, I just said, oh, you know, I'll be drunk by the weekend. It was a way of me bringing their attention to what they were saying without getting nasty about it.
Without getting angry with them.
Yes. Yeah. But I agree. I think that society has rules, and swearing, encouraging it isn't necessarily the best, as you would say.
No.
It wouldn't do him any favours.
He wanted to be a hip, cool teacher, I think. He was only young. And I think he thought that made him cool in the eyes of the kids. And I just thought it made him look a bit of an idiot, really, from everybody else's perspective. But then that's perhaps a bit harsh. So to go back to how do you work? Who do you work with? How does your coaching business go?
So at the moment, I'm working online. I'm working with children via Zoom. I have a course called Mindful Me, which is a 6-week course. And throughout that 6 weeks, we'll have a session a week over Zoom. And in between, I will give them little exercises to do. So it might be to listen to a mindful meditation that I've created and I've sent to them, or it might be to practice a breathing exercise, or it might be to practice positive affirmations, looking at themselves in the mirror saying, I can do this, I am wonderful. And that's quite a lot more difficult than we think.
Yes.
So it's not just that we have one session a week, it's a whole program of activities that they're doing when they're with me and then when they're not. And that runs for 6 weeks, and it will give them set them up with the basis to have a mindful practice. Establish that, and then after that, if they want to see me again, they can do that, and they can book me as and when. But I believe that they need to make a commitment. That's why I insist really on running the Mindful Me course.
And so is Mindful Me a one-to-one thing or a group thing?
Mindful Me is a one-to-one thing.
Okay.
I am available for groups, but when I've put up my group programs, there hasn't been that much interest, which I'm surprised about. But it says on my website that if anyone is interested in group sessions, then they can get in touch with me. I have had individual parents contact me about group sessions, and I've run some group sessions when we were able to do that in person, not over the internet. And as well as that, I also train adults. So I've got my 2 levels of training. So I train in the Connected Kids program, and there's the foundation level where I train adults to work with, as I mentioned, their own children, or children with whom they work, or children of friends or family. And that is it's when I'm running that in person, it's a 1-day course, but online I break it down into 4 manageable chunks. So I often do it at a weekend, Saturday morning for an hour and a half, Sunday morning, and then the same the following weekend. And that means people have got the rest of the day to get on with things. And
we're living in a weird time, aren't we?
We are. They've also got time to let the techniques sink in. And then the professional level is part self-study modules, and then there's 3 online sessions with me at monthly intervals, because there's quite a bit of work to be done in between each session. And then after that, there's coursework if they want to become a Connected Kids tutor and be able to charge a fee for the services.
Cool. So I know you've got, just to be what we do, we know we coach for a living.
Yes.
It's important that people know how to get hold of us. So we've got your website scrolling across here, which is wellbeingforkidsuk.com.
That's right.
You said you had your adult courses coming up soon. When are they?
Yeah. So my next foundation course starts on the 27th of February, and it will run that weekend and the following weekend, finishing on March the 6th.
Okay.
And you get a certificate to say that you've done that course as well, and access to the online community. So it's quite a thriving community, and there's a Facebook group. There's a wealth of expertise and support there, which I find really useful. And that's the first step of the professional level as well. So if people want to do the professional level, that would be the first step. And then the professional class would start on the 27th of March, which gives time to do the online units before that starts.
Cool. So if we go back and we imagine a world in which we weren't in a pandemic.
Yes.
That's this time last year, I wouldn't have imagined me ever saying that.
No.
There's almost nothing to say about the pandemic, is there? It's so bloody strange.
It is.
So it's the biggest disruption to society since the Second World War for us.
Yes.
You know, for our developed world.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just astonishing. Anyway, so if we weren't in a pandemic, or when this pandemic has swept through and a new version of normality returns, because I suspect we won't ever go back to the old version, how do you work then? If we're not all in lockdown, how does your working life look then?
So I usually make home visits when, like I'm a visiting tutor, when I work with children, and I run my adult courses from the Magnolia Therapy Centre, Carrington in Nottingham. But working through Zoom has allowed me to reach children from different areas
All over the place, yeah.
who I wouldn't be able to visit. So I think that there would still be an aspect of my work that would continue through Zoom,
Yeah.
online. But I do enjoy the energy of being in the same room with the people that I'm teaching.
Yes. Yes.
And also,
Different thing,
I
isn't it?
envisage that I'll be working more in schools as well
Yeah.
in this capacity.
And do you work in schools with the children who have already kind of been given some sort of I'm going to say a label. I don't mean that with all the baggage that comes with it, but in order for us to be able to get over this bit quickly. So they've been given a label that they have behavioral challenges or emotional challenges. Is that who you work with, or do you work with the ordinary everyday child in the classroom?
I can work with both because I've worked with both. So I can teach a nurture group, which is what I have done, taught nurture groups, but also I can teach, I'm available to teach regular classes about how the mindfulness and meditation can help them. And obviously, the smaller the group, the more intensive work that I can do with them. But generally, I could I can introduce myself to the class, and then perhaps work more intensively with smaller groups. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Even do assemblies to the whole school. I'm not afraid.
Public speaking is not your enemy.
No.
We've been talking for nearly 30 minutes.
My goodness.
I did tell you it would be the fastest
You
30
did?
minutes of your week, did I not?
Yes, you did, Sarah.
Tara, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's so interesting to talk to somebody who does something so utterly different from what I do now. It's
Wow.
not massively different from what I did once, although I did the other end of the energy spectrum. You know, I did the let's get it all out of you rather than let's teach you how to manage it. But yeah, it's so interesting. Thank you so much. And just to reiterate, you have a course starting on the 27th of Feb, which is the foundation level, and then the professional level a month later for adults.
For adults who want to work with children in this way and to support children's mental health. And it is Children's Mental Health Week as we speak, so it's a very apt thing.
Fantastic. I should make sure you get a copy of this video to share around.
Thank you.
Tara, it's been wonderful. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you for yours as well.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.